Alright, so to constantly get better or see to it that you are progressively improving at your microblading skill, one thing that you would want to do very often, very frequently, is practice. Alright, and there are times that you would need to practice and then you don't have a model to practice on. That is where the practice pad or your latex skin pad comes in. So I'm going to be showing you how I create my eyebrows, how I sketch out or create an outline, and then build on that to practice. I like to start with points to get decent brows. So this point here signifies the arch. This indicates the head of the brows. And then we need one single point here to mark the tail of the brows. So I'm just going to zoom that in for clarity. Yeah, so we have that. Now we're going to simply connect the dots. Ensure that you're working with a pencil that has been sharpened. And the good thing about this practice pad is, you can even sketch on it using a regular pencil. Okay. And then we can go back and just straighten out our lines. So this is a pretty straight eyebrow. I'll do another one on the opposite end. And then we connect the dots. Then I'll just make it a little longer to attempt to match it with the other, and then we'll just straighten out our lines. Okay, now if you'd like to draw eyebrows that are more angled, you want to lift up your arch. So you can see in this case the point of our arch wasn't so much higher than that of the heads, but in this case now for the second eyebrow, I'm going to lift up the arch by raising the lower point of the arch and the upper point of the arch, and then here goes our tail. So I'm just going to flip that because I prefer to practice upside down, since that's pretty much how I work. Remember, your model or your client is going to be lying upside down on a chair or a bed, whichever you have to use. So practicing upside down actually gives you some sort of leverage, because it helps you to master the muscle memory that is practical to you, to your personal style. So if you have a bed that's upside down, I would advise that you practice upside down. Or rather, if you have a bed and you have to stay behind your client, I'd advise that you practice upside down. If you, on the other hand, have a way to maneuver and then you stay in front of the model or client, that's fine. So we move. then I like to create what we call a spine. Now what the spine does is that it helps you to know when to change the direction of your hair strokes. Basically it helps you to easily guide, control the direction of your hair stroke. So it guides, it's like a guide. So if you observe now, we started with upward strokes or upward facing strokes, and then as we came towards the middle of the brow, we start to slant our strokes a little more than the head of the brows. That is because we are moving into the brows and we're trying to simulate actual hair strokes. If we look at the anatomy of an eyebrow in a picture, you will see exactly what I mean. And then we can either move and complete the entire strokes, or we come back and fill in. I personally prefer to create my entire first strokes all the way to the tail before I come in and begin to fill in. So I'll do same thing here. One thing that I like to keep at the back of my mind when microblading is the fact that microblading is an art, so while there are basic guidelines and rules to guide you through, you also want to be true to your art. So we're just filling in any spaces to see what that looks like up close. Focuses. Alright, looks good. Okay. So now we're just going to flip it then we're going to create the same kind of hair strokes on this side. Now for this side, I tend to work for the left eyebrow, I tend to work from a lot from this side and from behind, okay? So I'm assuming that same position as I practice. So we started the head with 3 upward strokes on the other brow. So here am I just ensuring that we have that uniformity. So we had 3 upward strokes as our first stroke, and then we had 2 other head strokes before we started to have the transition stroke. That is the stroke that starts to go sideways. So we continue with and then we start with our transition strokes, that is the slightly slanted strokes. So one thing I would like you to know is that there's nothing random about microblading. You know, those hair strokes may look random and all of that because we want them to look as natural as possible. There are patterns, and one of the best things that I have done in order to improve my skill as a microblading artist is to master certain patterns. So if I create a pattern on the right eyebrow, then the goal is to create the same kind of pattern following the same steps on the right eyebrow. So I'm going to be doing the same thing. Our spine started from somewhere here, so I'm going to come here and create the spine like I did before. It stopped somewhere right below the arch, so I'm doing the same thing on this eyebrow. Recall that I said that the spine helps to guide our strokes, the direction of our strokes. Now, as you practice, you realize that, or you may realize that, I don't want to assume this happens for everybody, that one side is usually a little more difficult to get done, you know, and that's the reason why you want to practice. That's the reason why this practice is essential to the improvement of your skill. So I find it so much easier to draw the to microblade the right eyebrow. So one trick that I use when I work is I like to do the tougher one first. So if I tend to start with the left eyebrow, that is this eyebrow, and then finish off by doing the right eyebrow. But you can just, you know, find what works for you. Okay. Now, so I know that this might look a little complex and quite random, but at the end of this video, I'm going to show you the kind of strokes that I used to create this pair of eyebrows. Now when you make your hair strokes and microblading, make sure that you do not have strokes crossing each other. Okay? Now I find that this particular principle might be not as conspicuous if it is breached at the tail of the eyebrow. So if you by error have hairs crossing each other, or one or two hairs crossing each other at the tail, it may not be so visible. But if you make this mistake at the head of the eyebrows where the hairs are scantier, and all, it's going to be very visible and it's almost not forgivable. Now the reason why you want to avoid hair strokes crossing each other as you microblade is because when they heal, those strokes that have crossed each other tend to blur out, so the brows don't come out looking crisp and precise. Your strokes don't come out looking crisp and precise. Now this is one of the things that I struggled with personally as a microblading artist, having healed results that look crisp and nice, but as soon as I was able to master this particular principle of ensuring that my hair strokes do not cross each other, I started seeing so much better healed results that I was so proud of. My work is still a work in progress as far as I'm concerned, because I haven't even gotten to the point where I actually want to be. I haven't gotten my work to be as satisfactory as I desire, but I've come a really long way from where I was before, and that's one of the reasons why I'm sharing a few things that helped me to achieve that. Okay, so for these upper eyebrows, I'm going to be doing a different pair of hair strokes, or a different style of hair strokes. So for the upper brows here, pair of brows that I have created, I'm going to be creating a different style of microblading. Okay. So I'm thinking of picking a style from here. Alright, so I'll do this. Okay, but before I start, I would let's create a spine guide. Okay, now in this case I'm just making a smaller spine that doesn't come midway all the way to down midpoints like we did for this pair. Okay, and then again flip my sheet and then we start. No rushing, don't rush your strokes. Take your time and get the strokes that you want. You're not racing against anybody. Only person you're trying to get better than is who you were on your last client or what you did with your last client. Alright, so just take it slow. Watch your spacing. You find that I find that when I try to speed through my my first pass, I may have unequal spaces. So for whatever reason, maybe I'm racing against time. I find that I'll end up with a few spaces that aren't equal. And that's not something you want to have. You could also make use of dots, create dots along your outline to help you, to guide your spacing if you have trouble getting the right spacing all the time. Alright, so we're going to come back now and begin to fill in. Alright, fill in between the strokes, or in between our spaces. Ensure that no strokes cross over the other. You're creating parallel lines that are completely parallel or that meet at a certain point. So in this case, if you look in closer, you will see that what I'm creating are actually parallel lines that meet. I'm trying to fix my focus. Yeah, so what we have are parallel lines that meet. Okay. Trust me, like I always say, microblading is so much about muscle memory. So the more you practice, the better you become. The more you practice, the better you become. Alright, so we filled up the lower spaces, or in between the lower strokes. Now we want to fill in between the upper strokes. Spacing has to be right. Remember, for the brows to heal properly, to heal very nicely. Nobody takes the time to create all these pretty hair strokes and then make them with an intention to have them disappear after they heal. The goal is to maintain them, right? So that's what we do. And one of the best ways to ensure that you maintain your hair strokes, or that your hair strokes remain crisp even after the healing, is to get the spacing right. Now, apart from other factors that are not within your control, like the kind of skin that your client has, oily skin tends to blur out microblading strokes. you know. But with that out of the way, the rest of the responsibility is on you, the microblading artist, and a lot of it depends on the quality of this, the depth of your strokes, secondly the spacing of your strokes, all right, and then thirdly the direction of your strokes. So if your strokes cross each other, they will definitely blur out. If your strokes are cut too deep, they will definitely blur out. If the spacing in between the strokes is too much, they will blend into each other, and of course that would cause some blurring. Let's just redefine our outline here again, and then remove. So I started here with 2 first strokes double, as against 1, 2, 3 that we started here with. So this is just 2, and then we come with another stroke. So basically I worked with 2 strokes, upper and lower strokes, all the way. So we start creating our slanted strokes now. Remember, keep your spacing equal. All right. Okay, so beginning from our 3rd stroke, we start to make tiny strokes in between to fill up. So recall that on that side we made parallel strokes that meet at the tip. So we do the same thing here, parallel strokes that meet at the tip of each stroke. Maneuver your sheets to turn and to be comfortable, because of course you'll be moving gently as you work on your clients. Okay, so remember, if the spacing is too close together, we're going to have heeled brows that do not have crisp strokes. Okay, and that is if every other thing checks. Yeah, so we keep it going. from in between and fill up any extremely wide spaces. And we're good to go. Alright, so now I'm just going to drop on some oil to help us wipe our outline and reveal just the hair strokes. And that is how I practice hair strokes on paper. I like to work out, I like to try my hands out on, different kinds of hair strokes. Okay, so I can see now that we have a little gap here compared to, that is at the tail, beginning of the tail of this eyebrow compared to this. I guess because we wiped off the white pencil, so all of that is more visible now. So I'm just going to fill that in, not by making new strokes, but by slightly extending the bottom strokes that are already made. Slightly extending, because if we make new strokes, it's going to become a mess. Alright, you can also see some spaces in between here, so new stroke here, but following the direction. Yeah, and there we have it. Now do this every day. Practice. You want to get better at microblading, you want to get better at creating hair strokes. Do this every day consistently for 3 weeks. All right, and you're going to realize how amazing you become, how much improvement you would record in that space of time, just because you committed to more practice. So in case you were looking for motivation to practice, this is your motivation. I would like to show you some of my previous practice work on skin pad, and then show you this, and then you see how much improvement I've recorded in the past few weeks. So here are a few of my previous trials. Okay, so I would encourage you to actually keep record of your progress by, don't trash your messes, don't trash your mistakes, your errors, your growth. Keep them. They are all a testimonial to how much improvement and how much progress you have made in your journey as a microblading artist. Now look at what horrible mess this is. But at a point in my career, as a startup microblading artist, this was my goal. So getting to this point was quite the milestone for me. So this was quite coordinated and stuff, but still a mess because there were a lot of crossing strokes and all of that. But this was where I started to get better. I started to understand the principle of patterns and techniques and uniformity in microblading. Now, this is not all of my practice work, but these are the ones I can find here right now. I'm ensuring that from this point, I constantly keep record, and I'm encouraging you to do the same. Do not trash your own work. Do not trash, when you make a mess, no problem. We all have to, go through that process in order to get better. Okay? And then this is, some other practice work. On this side here, you would see that I had practiced hair strokes individually before I started to put them into eyebrows. So you see, this is a journey, and it's so amazing to see how much progress you've been able to attain just by committing to consistent practice. Yeah, and that's the end of this video. If you have any questions, or there are certain areas of microblading you would like me to teach or speak about, please drop in the comment box below. If you found this video helpful, I'd like you to please subscribe to my channel and share, and drop your comments. I'm still trying to get a hang of this, this whole YouTube thing. So please encourage me to not stop, and we can make progress on this journey together. Thank you.